Brothers, we are so back. Warhammer 40k has always been cool, but the first time that it really took the world by storm was back in 2004 when Dawn of War was released. This game shaped the online culture and perception of 40k to such an extent that many of the memes that you continue to see today are the same ones that were circling the internet 20 years ago. Fast forward to the present and we now have the Dawn of War Definitive Edition, which enhances the initial experience by retaining the charm of its original graphics while providing great quality of life such as 4K support, improved sharpness, and optimizations across the board, all while being compatible with 20 years worth of community-made mods. Subscribe if you think Horus had major daddy issues, and leave a comment if you think he did nothing wrong. And a huge thank you to Relic Entertainment for revisiting this masterpiece and sponsoring this video. Click on the link in the description down below to buy Dawn of War Definitive Edition today. The heretics and Xenos aren't gonna purge themselves. Now, the game itself is packed with tons of content, with major highlights being its 4 campaigns and 9 playable factions, but in actuality, Dawn of War has unlimited replayability due to its insane modding scene, which we'll briefly dive into later. The first thing that I need to mention is that the game is still one of the only Warhammer 40k games that allows you to play as nearly every major faction in 40k. There's no other 40k game to date that allows you to field and control the sheer variety of units that are available to you in Dawn of War, and keep in mind that this game came out in 2004. It's been over 20 years and we still haven't been blessed with a 40k game that delivers an experience that accounts for fans of nearly every faction by allowing you to control such a vast array of units. The only major factions that aren't represented are the Tyranids, which appeared in the sequel, and the Leagues of the Votan, who only recently officially got their own codex. Every other major faction is represented somehow, whether it be directly with an army or indirectly with a handful of units. Gameplay-wise, for those of you who don't know, Dawn of War is an RTS with base building and controllable heroes, making it have a couple of RPG elements as well. Map control is as important as locating and engaging the enemy, because in order to recruit an army, you need requisition, obtainable by capturing and fortifying strategic points. Meanwhile, generators create power, which lets you upgrade your army with all sorts of different weapons and upgrades, while also allowing you to recruit more vehicles for the army. The battle for resources in this game works brilliantly and is a classic in the RTS genre because it creates a natural flow on the map. Mastering micromanagement between scouting, fighting, expanding, and upgrading your base is what will eventually allow you to conquer any matchup. But what separates Dawn of War from other games is its unique attention to detail and charm, especially when it comes to 40k. Look what happens after opening up the game for the first time and then selecting Tau in the Army Painter and then going back to the main menu. Changing the commander and the music seems like a small detail, but it's smooth and it really makes a difference for 40k fans. And the game is littered with details like this. Alright, now that you understand the basic premise of the game, let's talk about the campaigns, which I think are going to be where the majority of you spend most of your time. Each of the campaigns presented by Dawn of War's expansions plays progressively differently. The original Dawn of War and Winter Assault campaigns play out in a much more narrative-focused storytelling style, while the campaigns for Dark Crusade and Soulstorm incorporate elements that you would typically see in something like a Total War game. I won't deep dive into the stories themselves because I don't want to spoil them in the event that this may be your first time playing the game, but I want to highlight what each of them is about and what makes them so good. The original Dawn of War campaign shares a space with World of Warcraft and Dark Souls as having some of the best and nostalgic video game moments of my childhood. The story introduces the Blood Raven Space Marine chapter and you, the player, to the 40k setting, and it includes nearly all of the elements of a classic 40k narrative. Space Marines kicking ass, betrayal, and a high-stakes final battle that sets the scene for the darkest moment in the entire history of the Blood Ravens chapter. A combination of this campaign and the narrative in Dawn of War 2 are the main reasons why the Blood Ravens are my favorite chapter in the setting. The next campaign we have is Winter Assault, which allows you to choose the forces of Order, where you can play as the Imperial Guard or Eldar, and the forces of Disorder, where you play as the Orcs and Chaos. The campaign is much more straightforward than the first, and I would say that the story is much more textbook as well when it comes to the narratives for each of these factions. Well, maybe it would be more appropriate to say that Winter Assault invented what is considered textbook storytelling for each of these factions in the modern 40k era. It's fitting to talk about the last two campaigns together because they completely revamp how the campaigns play and how the narratives are delivered to the player. In both Dark Crusade and Soulstorm, you're able to play as all of the factions that were available in those expansions at the time of their release. As I mentioned before, the campaigns aren't played in a linear, narrative-driven fashion. They're instead played on a board or map, something akin to what you would see in a Total War game. You conquer provinces to expand your honor guard, collect war gear, and earn unique upgrades as you explore the map. And you're even blessed with unique cutscenes whenever you invade the home province of an enemy faction. And after beating each of your opponents, you're blessed with an ending cutscene that's unique and flavorful to your faction that I will not be spoiling in any way today. You're just gonna have to play the game on your own and beat the campaign with every faction, but between you and me, the Orcs had the best ending to Soulstorm, and it's not even close. Also, I'm pretty sure that it's canon, which is crazy because I feel like the Orcs aren't really supposed to win anything. Speaking of factions, if you've never played Dawn of War, the Definitive Edition includes every faction from the original game to include Chaos, Dark Eldar, the Imperial Guard, Necrons, Orcs, Sisters of Battle, Space Marines, and the Tau. Each faction has commander units that you recruit as you progress from Tier 1 to Tier 3, and the sheer variety of units available for your army is a 40k fan's wet dream. I'm a sucker for the Space Marines Force Commander because he's such a well-balanced melee commander, and my favorite unit in general are the Grey Knights. These guys are always phenomenal to have on the battlefield, and everything about them is amazing, from their busted stats to how they perform overall, and of course, they just look so damn cool. I'm pretty sure that Dawn of War's Grey Knights are what cemented the Space Marines as my favorite faction in Warhammer 40k. Regardless of who your favorite is, the fact that the Dark Crusade campaign features 7 factions and the Soulstorm campaign lets you play as all 9 factions means that the game just comes packed with tons of replayability. And trying every faction out is honestly the best way to play Dawn of War if you're a 40k fan or if you're interested in getting into 40k. Each faction is a snapshot of the units, weapons, and the lore that exists within the forces of the Imperium, the heretic traitors and demons of chaos, and the various Xenos factions. What shocks me the most is how the Definitive Edition is priced. You're effectively getting a full game plus all of its expansions for $30 and $21 if you already own the Anniversary Edition of the original game. The Definitive Edition is just one big love letter to the 40k community. But if that's not enough for you, then don't worry, because the Dawn of War community has made sure that the game that already has tons of content can be played with even more content. The Unification mod, available on Nexus Mods, adds 20 more factions to the game to include the Renegade Guard, the Inquisition and/or Demon Hunters, the Emperor's Children, Farside Enclaves, the Witch Hunters, Legion of the Damned, the 13th Company, World Eaters, the Adeptus Mechanicus, Imperial Fists, the Blood Angels, Thousand Sons, Chaos Demons, Death Guard, Death Corps of Krieg, Black Templars, Harlequins, Tyranids, Inari, the Steel Legion, Salamanders, Vestrayan Firstborn, Night Lords, the Praetorian Guard, Dark Angels, Fallen Angels, and the Raven Guard. Basically, everything but the Leagues of Votan and Custodes, and I guess Gene Stealer Cults now that I think about it. But seriously, if you're a 40k fan or you're interested in 40k in general, then don't skip out on the Dawn of War Definitive Edition. This entire game is a breath of fresh air in the modern gaming space where every other game is packed with microtransactions or exciting content is just locked behind hundreds of hours of grind. Additionally, it's quite sad that many of the 40k games released nowadays have an intense focus on the Imperium. 3 of 40k's best games at the moment, Space Marine 2, Darktide, and Rogue Trader, all heavily emphasize different characters across the Imperium. It's just nice to play as a Xenos or Chaos in a real-time game, and I might just revisit Dawn of War 2 after I've beaten every one of the campaigns in the Definitive Edition. As always, I appreciate your viewership. Again, huge thanks to Relic Entertainment for sponsoring this video. This has been Jefficus, and I'll see you in-game.